There it goes. I saw it.
Yep. It's setting it up for YouTube Live, and we are live now. All right, everybody. So good to have you back here on this new segment on self-love. This is our second interview out of this series in order to celebrate the most important love in our lives, which is definitely ourselves. It is my pleasure to join today a new special guest. It's so hard to introduce her because she does and has done so many things in her life and adds so much value with her wisdom, her love, and her knowledge. But let me just try to do it chronologically so that you'll know a little bit. Jana Bekla. Jana, you are a wife, you are a mother of two, you have a young adult and a young kid also. You started your career as a teacher and then became a principal, did extensive studies on leadership. You are passionate about leadership and community and helping people evolve, basically. You've also done extensive research and studies on handling energy and Reiki and name it. And now you are the proud owner of, I want to say it right, Life Outside the Line Consulting, where you provide an array of services to your clients to help navigate self-discovery, and out of the patterns they have inherited in their lives, how to move forward, which I think it's extremely valuable. Before we dive into the subject of today, which is self love, the science, the spirit, and the transformation, I want the people that are watching us to know a little bit about you and how has been your own life journey to take you from where you were when you were younger into who you are now, this person that it's conscious and intentional about your own life choices.
Oh, thanks, Anna. That was a beautiful introduction. Yeah, so I'm not very old. I'll just say I'm 43. I put it out there. And life dealt me quite a few hands. And that landed me exactly where I am. And I'm grateful every day for every hardship that I've been through. So I'll start at the beginning very briefly. I grew up in North Georgia on a crazy farm, organic farm. So I was very in touch with the land. And my parents both came from difficult childhoods. And so they were growing up at the same time, much like I did with my daughter, who's now 22. And then you go through life and you start making all the choices to, set a career and all the things. And I jumped into a marriage really young. I'll admit it probably wasn't the wisest thing, but that's where my heart took me. So I did it. And I've always followed my heart in many ways. And it turned out that I was right. He wasn't a great person. And after that marriage ended when I was 24 with a 2-year old and a single mom in it, putting myself through college, working full time, being across the country, away from all my family, I had to heal. I was a mess and I didn't know what to do with this world because I was just functioning. I was in survival mode. That's when I started the self love journey. That's when I started to dive in and say, well, I'm all by myself. What do I do to keep myself grounded and put together and functioning at a level where I could at least be a mom that I felt as proud as I could have? We always do our best when we can. And that's when I dove in. I started doing the exercises that I needed and feeding myself the food that felt best and spending time with her and just being the mom that I really wanted to be. And that's what started all of the path. In time, as it grew, I built my career and I had to keep going, feeding myself and keeping my cup full and meeting all the new people and new jobs and all the things. And so then after being the principal and saying in 2020 when life hit, I was like, I'm done, right? But I had to feed myself even more to dive into what my calling was, to dive into the things that really fed my soul at a different level. So something happens at around 40 people. I'm just warning you, something happens. And that's when you just say, I need to feed my soul even more. And so we do.
And now you have this incredible calling of helping people in many different ways. You
Many.
I am super proud to have you in Poofy as one of our Poofy guides, and to know that you leave everyone that comes in touch with you better than before they met you. So
I,
tell us a little bit about the spirit and the transformation.
okay, say that one more time. Sorry, Anna.
Tell us a little bit about self-love. What's the science, around self-love?
So this is a big one, and this is what I really like. I like to mix science with the energy behind it. We all are a huge amount of energy. This world is energy. It's transmutable through time, right? But what about the science behind it? So the really thing that I wanted to touch on is scientifically and spiritually, self-love is so essential, and it transforms not just ourselves, but the full world around us. It can shift everything in our perspective if we choose to. So with that question of what does self-love mean to you, I want all of you that are watching to pay attention to that. And I have questions for you too coming up. So be ready to chat. Many think that self-love is just that pampering thing, right? Where we indulge, we take the poofy bombs and we do the great baths and it's all lovely. But let's take it up a notch. Self-love is actually at its core a deep, unwavering acceptance of yourself. Now, I want you to put your hand on your heart and really sit with that for a second. Self love is about honoring your worth, not just when you feel really good, right? If you feel really good, you're not thinking about what your body needs. It's when you feel down, it's when you're struggling that you're like, oh, I'm out of balance, something's not right. So when you're struggling is when you need self love the most. It's when you need to honor your worth the most. And I want you all to think about this idea. The self love, it's not a selfish thing. Our society has this challenge of how do you give to yourself and all of these things. And I want you to really sit in your soul that self love is not selfish. Self love is the ultimate gift to yourself. It's actually that foundation to form the better relationships with your spouse, with your partner, with your children. It's the foundation for your healthier self and body. And self love can truly equal a more fulfilling life. So, in the chat, anybody that's watching, I'm not going to like quiz you or anything, but I do want you to post up. How do you personally define self love for yourself? Anna, you can answer too. What do you define it for yourself?
You know, um, Jana, that it's 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 a subject that I absolutely love because, like you, I came from a family that was broken. In my case, in your case was your parents. In my case was my own family that was broken, and I grew up trying to demonstrate always to my parents that I was capable, I can do it, you can rely on me. I'm the firstborn child,
Me
and
too.
that it's a that's a tough
Yeah.
to integrate in a young at a young age or in a young brain. And through the years, I've come to realize that acceptance, same as you said, like I learning who I am, learning what are the things that I value, and communicating those things clearly to the people around me. And I know some people talk about it in terms of like establishing boundaries. For me personally, it's also establishing expectations. I try to be like overly clear on, I like this, and we can get together and along in this way. These are the things that I don't allow. You know, I I don't allow abuse, for example, or injustice. Like it's a non-negotiable
Right.
in my life to protect my core and my identity of who I am. My husband, we met at a very young age. I was 17 and he was 19. And he was someone that made me recognize your choices are important at a very young age, because I was pretty much like trying to please my parents all the time. And he was like, but what do you want?
Right.
And if you made a mistake, it's okay because it was your choice. So it
Yep.
really doesn't matter, right? And so I think it has to do 100% with acceptance and being clear on what it's allowed and what it's not allowed, uh, in me and around me.
Right. That's where that emotional concept comes in. And it also has such a biological impact on us when we realize the emotional impact. So when we put those two together, that's where the brain and that emotional regulation, we're always talking to our kids, are you helping them be emotionally regulated? Don't forget to breathe when you're angry and all those things. And we're trying to be that best parent that we can. But if we practice that self-compassion, truly the science behind that is it lowers the cortisol in our body. When we have extra stress, that cortisol level goes through the roof. That's why our sleep changes. That's why we start gaining weight when we're stressed out. That's why all those things feel so out of balance. So, because that's your cortisol that is through the roof. So, when we do the emotional regulation and we do feed ourselves with the self love idea and do the things that help us, that's also increasing the oxytocin. And talking about Valentine's tomorrow, we all want more of this love hormone, right? We all want more love hormone. Forget Valentine's Day. We need it all the time, right? So, but when we do that, the things that help us get this oxytocin, it's promoting our relaxation, it's promoting our connection with everyone around us, and most importantly, ourselves. And so that's that higher self-love level that where we show the less activation in the amygdala, which is this little part of the back of the brain. And it's the fear center in the back of the brain. And that's where we get that stress response. That's where we get fight or flight. That's when we're in survival mode. That's when the cortisol goes up, right? And so as we do these things, our body responds in a calmer, more relaxed, more emotionally regulated way. And we can be a lot more rational. And as women, we know that that's needed.
Give me a tip. If I'm watching this, give me a tip because life it's demanding, right? And it's fast paced. Give me a tip for everyone listening on how to self-regulate. If it's a mantra or like or an affirmation or what or breathing technique, something that we can practice several times throughout the day. That it's of course it can be like an hour and a half. It has to be short,
I've
but
got
it
so many things.
has to stay grounded, you know?
Right. So I help clients with being grounded and regulating their emotions all the time. And some of the things that come to mind first is breathing. There's different kinds of breathing. Being a shamanic practitioner, I teach a certain kind of breathing called the shaman breath. And it's literally breathing in for 4, holding it for 4, breathing out for 4, and then pushing it out for 4. There's also square breathing where you do that and you visualize a square. Believe it or not, if you do something, you're feeling anxiety and you're feeling stressed, hum. Do humming. Humming immediately takes your brain off of it. And this is backed by science 100%. Hum because you're doing something active. Another thing is grounding, putting your feet outside in the grass. I know most of us are in the winter. Don't put your feet in the snow if you're not ready for it. But grounding is a really big thing, the balancing piece of that. Besides the breath, the breathing, the grounding, drawing, I like to do Zentangle drawing because another thing, it's active, walking, proper exercise, proper nutrition. I mean, I could go on for days. Those are the main things that people can focus on a daily basis.
I love it. I listen to salsa and it one song. I have
Yeah,
one song from Celia Cruz that I listen to and it's like woohoo, it unlocks
you got that Latina,
that Latino blood.
right? It's
I
perfect.
love the breathing. I'm gonna start practicing more the breathing.
And there's so many different breathing techniques. There's fire breathing. There, I mean, I could, write a million papers on it. But if anyone wanted to reach out, I'm more than happy to answer questions. If anybody has anything in the comments, I can't see them right now, but I'm more than happy to respond. So some of those other physical benefits before we get into that social and relational impact, when we practice self-love, literally, it helps our heart. I talk about the heart chakra and the heart center and living from a heart space. Well, another reason you need to do those things is because it lowers your blood pressure. Like literally, self-love lowers your blood pressure. It helps your heart health. It helps your circulation. It boosts your immune function. When you're super stressed out, your immune function goes down the tubes and everybody starts getting sick. Don't do that. Just don't. You have the power to give yourself the things to help yourself be healthy. And if you're super, if you have that internal dialogue And self-love is a thing where you can stop that internal dialogue a little bit. And you have that chronic self-criticism, that inner voice, you got to shift that. And that voice alone is linked to that higher inflammation, making your body attack itself. So there's literally science behind why you should give yourself self-love. Like, do it.
I'm
So,
making notes here. So self-love lowers your heart rate, your
yeah.
immune system, lowers cortisol,
Yep.
so oxytocin.
Oxytocin is increased. It activates your vagus nerve, which also is a promoter of calming your nervous system and your overall well-being as well. So yeah,
Wow.
it really hits your body hard when you allow yourself to be totally dysregulated.
Now, your second part of your talk, it's so we're going to transition from the science to the spirit.
Yep. Yep, the good part. This is some of my favorites. So I work with people helping with their spirituality and that journey a lot, the healing piece. And that role of gratitude and spirituality with self-love is super important to welcome as a daily practice into your life. So gratitude itself, we talk about gratitude through Thanksgiving and that season of thanks, but gratitude is something that we can bring into our daily practice. And it's a self-love. I always like it's a quartz crystal, right? I'm always holding a quartz. This is my little meditation frog. And he lives on my desk with my little altar, and he reminds me of amplification because quartz crystals that's what they do. They're all about amplification. They're in our cell phones, they're in our computers. That's how technology works in many ways. But if you use amplification for gratification, it really shifts the focus from what's lacking in our life to full abundance. And when I'm talking about gratification, I'm not saying thanks for my house. I'm saying thanks for the challenges. Thanks for the things that help me grow. And when we begin gratification, neuroscientific research truly shows that practicing daily gratitude increases the dopamine. And again, back to that serotonin. So now we've hit oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin with self love. And that's the brain's natural feel good chemicals. So if we can put all those three together, we're going to be flying high together in a great way. So, spiritually speaking, when we acknowledge what we really have, again, not just the things, the abundance in our life, what we really have, that's when more good things will come to us. That's when those golden doors open. That's when we truly step into a state of sufficiency and alignment. Okay, we can't live in that space 24/7. But if we know what it feels like in our body and our heart space, then we know how to call it in on a regular basis.
I love this. Oh my God. Like, is this a treat for everybody as much as it is a treat for me? I took a few notes on switching the focus from lacking to abundance.
Yeah.
Um, and here's a perfect example, practical example, right? I have a younger kid that it's messy, and she lives a trail of things everywhere throughout the house, right? You name it, tape, glue, stickers. I mean, shoes, clothing, toys, you name it, right? Food.
Yep.
And in the effort of for self-regulation, right? You have an option. I have an option to look at it and like, oh my gosh, like I have to clean so much. I have to how messy it is, right? That's from the lacking perspective, or to feel blessed for having a healthy child that
Yep.
it's confident and feels amazing in her own space, where she can explore and make messes in a safe way, right? And so it's like it's a choice. Now, to your point, depending on the cortisol level of the day, can go either way, right?
Good. But let's talk about, I mean, being a young child, they're still so innocent. They're still so sacred. And we live in a world where little ones are told to just keep going, keep up with mom. Here, let me do it for you. What if we actually allowed them to be the sacred selves that they are? And then what if we looked at ourselves as being sacred? And what if we honored our bodies and ourselves as sacred beings and really allowed that self love to give us and help us grow our inner wisdom? If we approach life with this different idea, and I know this is life outside the box, that's why my business is called Life Outside the Lines. I truly try to live it because there's a purpose. And so, but what if we looked outside and truly, truly approach life with the sense of divine love? And I'm not talking about being, life through rose-colored glasses and not looking at the hardships and not recognizing the challenges. Those are the good things too, and we need to find the value there. But if we approach life with that sense of divine love, we naturally extend that same love to ourselves, and it becomes easier, and we get in touch with that inner child, and we can live with the silly joy and the excitement instead of walking through with the, and I'm naturally, believe it or not, I can talk about this till I'm blue in the face, but I am naturally a super, super serious person. I'm like, I got to get it done. My day's big, not big enough. I don't have enough hours. And if I calm myself and breathe and remember it's one day in the big picture, and if I'm silly and I can play and I can try to have fun, the entire feeling, the entire energy around me shifts. And I can function in a happier way, getting in touch with that inner child, being silly, having fun, and everything's going to get done anyway. And maybe just not so serious.
We
I'm
we
laughing
had
at me.
we had a conversation a few days ago at Poofy Organics around the things that you can and cannot control, and how that concept of the need for control end up controlling us, and then we lose that edge, that joy. So
Yep.
I love that you're reminding us of it. Okay, so we've covered 2 out of 3. Let's talk about the transformation of self-love.
Oh, the good stuff. That's also good. So the transformation, when we start letting these things come to us, that's where we really start the change, right? These are the challenges that I want to, the social challenges, the pieces of that transformation, because it does change us internally and socially. So it sets this, our self-love that we give ourselves sets the standard of what we accept. You brought up boundaries earlier, right? That is, and I was waiting to get to this piece because it's so important. How many of us struggle setting boundaries? And where does that stem from? One, we need to heal where that stems from because we can, it's doable. But then as we set those boundaries and we hold fast to them and we allow them to happen around us, things change. So that sets that standard for how others treat you. How you allow others to be is how you allow them to treat you. And that's the truth about that person, right? So if you fully respect yourself, you are going to attract respect 24/7.
I want to say that again a
Yeah,
little bit slower because I
I
think
know.
it needs to sink in.
Yeah. So self-love, I'll say it again. When we set the standard for how others treat you, if you respect yourself, you attract respect. Where do you feel that? Put it in the comments. Where do you feel that in your body? I hear a lot of people when I'm talking to clients about this, they say, oh, that hit me in all the feels, because it's hard to do. It's really hard to do. We live in a world, and I talk about our society and our world a lot because we all live here. A lot of companies, and this is what I admire about Poofy so much in so many ways with this shift and transition that you guys have experienced the past 2 years too. You're setting standard for who you are and how you present yourself. And it's been a beautiful transformation to watch. We live in a world where there's companies and corporations and all of these things that are just go, 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 more, 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 give, give, give. And you get so burned out. What if you were able to say, I am doing a 40 or 50-hour work week. I'm not going to work on the weekends. That's self-love. And I know that's not the same, and we don't all have that ability at certain times. We give and flex, right? That's part of life. But the boundaries with our friends to respect us, to help us, to support us, to love us. Our higher self-worth is important to us to set those boundaries. These healthier relationships will only become healthier if we feed it to be healthier, if we make the communications, and that equals a greater emotional resilience in general for all of us. I know
I
it's a a lot to think about, isn't it? It's a great topic, but there's a lot behind it. Self-love and giving ourselves that sacredness about it, it's a challenge in this world. And it has to be done intentionally and start small, right? We start small and it grows in time.
I watch, um, God knows if it was a TikTok or an Instagram video of Matthew McConaughey. I can't remember. It's from Texas. So
I know.
I love how he said, like, it's like he was quoting you. He said, be careful with what you allow because you're teaching people how to treat you.
Yeah. And with our kids too. That's not just with everyone. That's with our kids especially. And kids are even more resilient because that's their job. It's a child's job to push. They want the boundaries. If they don't have boundaries, they go berserk, right? And so it's the boundaries that help them feel safe. It's the boundaries that we as adults set that can help us feel safe in our life. The lack of boundaries is when we don't feel safe and we're like, well, what's going to come at me? And then you have less resiliency because you're in fear. And then your amygdala gets all jacked up and then your cortisol. I mean, see the pattern?
Wow. All right. A lot of wisdom here. And now that we have been shaken to our core in the first part of this interview, we are going to move towards practices, things that we can do, to put in practice on a day-to-day basis. Uh, Tips and actions that are aligned with self-respect and self-love, and not, as Jana mentioned, not in a selfish way, in an honorable and respectful way, to gain alignment, between who we are, how we behave, and what we project and how we present ourselves out there
Right.
in our community.
And so I've got four transformative self-love practices that I'm going to be chatting about. And these are practices that can be done no matter what stage of life you're in, no matter who you are as a person, no matter what job you have. There is no excuse. So if you have set, I know some people are big on like New Year's goals and intentions. I'm a word person. My word of the year is success. A couple years ago, my word was abundance. That's the one that hit me on gratitude the hardest. That's when it really took shape. But success is already bringing me different things. I'm not talking financial success. I mean, yeah, bring it on, right? Always. I need all the financial success, but more so success for me to feel successful. So self-love equals you feeling successful as well. And then that carries over to all of these four transformative practices we're going to chat about. So we already touched on them a little bit. One is super important. Again, we're back to boundaries. We're back to saying no with love. And I know the last talk person, a doctor, I forget her, Dr.
Horton, yeah, Dr. Horton, Lauren.
Came on and watched because again, I love the topic, so I'm always going to watch. She said no is a full sentence. And I absolutely agree with that. So I'm going to reiterate that, bring it back. No is a full sentence. But we talked about boundaries are a self-respect practice. It's not because you just want to say no and you can't take things on. That could be actually a very valid reason, right? But as you tell others, this is what I will and will not allow. We talked about that briefly, but that is part of the practice. And your challenge around this, yes, there's always a challenge. I give lots of challenges, is writing down 3 energy draining habits. So if you're listening and you are ready to jump in, write down 3 energy draining habits or people. I admit it's okay to write down people, and set a loving but firm boundary this week. So for each one of those 3, what is one gentle, loving boundary that you can begin to set? So for example, while you guys are sort of getting that, I homeschool my son. He's 9 years old, 9.5, and he's starting to probably get a little extra testosterone, I'll be honest. And the anger is starting to come out once in a while. And it's not anger at me or anything. It's anger like at a math problem, like he just gets frustrated that it's not coming as fast as he wants. So one of my self-love boundaries was to teach him more emotional regulation because it's coming up and he really needs it. And a boundary is, instead of me getting upset and frustrated with his energy as it started to ramp up, my self-love is to give him a huge hug or walk away and say, you have the power to calm down. That is a huge boundary for me because his energy, and I'm very empathetic, so I absorb that energy. So if I absorb his energy, we're both getting ramped up, and before you know it, it's a really bad idea. So for me, that little boundary was, all right, we're just going to take some deep breaths, calm down. How about some hugs? And then we'll get on with our math. But that was a new one we had to experience in the past few weeks as he's changed his attitude a little bit. So,
You know, I am a recovered workaholic,
mhm.
and also a recovered screen slaver, or slave, basically, screen slave. Like I've been addicted to but never to substances, or not yet, hopefully. Hopefully. But to work, most definitely,
Yeah.
into screens, most definitely. And in both occasions, Jana, it's when you develop an addiction, putting boundaries, it's hard, right? First of all, it's hard to acknowledge it. And you can become addicted to people, to relationships, to emotions, to so many things, right?
Right.
And first, acknowledging it's hard. And the second one, to your point, like putting a steady, firm boundary. In so if there's people like the past Anna, that are listening to this, that are struggling with holding that boundary, there's two sides of that coin that I wanted to address. One is the guilt, right? Whenever I would stop working, I feel guilty that I wasn't working and I wasn't being productive, right?
Right.
Or if I'm not engaging on family emotional drama with my parents, then I feel guilty that I'm not giving them the emotional support they're craving, right? So how do we deal with the guilt in honor and respect for ourselves? It's one. And then number two, how do we build on that practice? What I found is, like, you do it one time and it's flaky, but you do it the second time and it's a little stronger. Then you do it a third time and it's a little stronger until
That's
it's
why I gave you three. I work in threes. It's the mind, body, spirit. I work in threes and I do that for everything. So the first one, the guilt. The guilt is a big one. Guilt is a challenge because guilt has a purpose. It's part of our conscience. But
Mhm.
as we build self-respect with this practice, it's important to let the self-respect grow. The more self-respect you have, the less guilt you're going to have. And there's boundaries here, right? Like there's a lot of early 20s kids that are like, your problem, not my problem. And no matter what it is, it's
No,
your
hashtag,
problem.
hashtag envy.
Right? Hashtag so many things. But they don't take other people's feelings into account with that. So there is a modicum of mediation and moderation in this
Mhm.
with self-respect, boundaries, and how do our actions affect others, right? Does someone need to set a boundary with us? It goes two ways. This is a two-way street. It's not my way or the highway. We still have to listen to how others feel and be respectful in that way too. So that's the point that I wanted to talk about there just a little and point out is self-respect, boundaries. We're not setting boundaries with toxic positivity. I'm talking about boundaries that truly support what you need for safety and letting the fear piece go. It's not the toxic positivity of, I'm going to do whatever the F I want and you have to deal with
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's not healthy. That's not where we're going with that. So when we're talking about those boundaries, saying no, think about what we're actually doing with that and how does it feed us and help us, our mind, body, and spirit.
Okay, so we have homework to do. 3 energy draining habits or people And what is the limit or the boundary we're going to establish and hold it firm for 1 week?
Yep, setting a loving but firm boundary for 1 week. Something reasonable. Start small. We're not setting boundaries that are so big that we can't we can't master them. So things like this, we do need to start small. And as you start small, where do you feel it? How does it work for you? How do we stick to it? So, it takes 21 days and then 45 days for things to become a real habit. Make your choices based on what you want out of it. Make your intentions. That's what we have to do.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's practice number one.
One,
What's practice number two?
rewriting self-talk and your thought patterns. Okay, so cycle breaking. This is one of the hardest things I've personally ever experienced in my entire life. And I'm going to be really honest, this work is never done. You can improve, but this work is never done. So studies show that 80% of our thoughts are negative and repetitive. The same-sex parent in your family is where you absorb the most of what they model from their behavior. So I absorbed the most of my behavior from what my mother modeled. My mother's amazing in so many ways, but no one's perfect, right? So that 80% of our thoughts and negative and repetitive things come from that parent. And it's easy because it's easy to focus on the negative and not the positive. This is a conscious shift that we have to force intentionally, or else it does not happen. So the solution that I like to work with the most, energy work, we're releasing, we're calling things back in, but I also use mirror work. So as we're doing this, literally, you can stand in front of a mirror, you look deep into your own eyes through the mirror, and you can affirm. So this is where the affirmations can come into play. There's a lot of science behind affirmations. Some people love them, some people hate them. It doesn't matter. Whatever you say to yourself, your body absorbs. So use it or don't. It's okay either way, but know that your self-talk is still making an effect on your body. So the one affirmation that I'm going to say today is I am enough, I am worthy, and I am deeply loved. The more you say these positive things, the brain starts to rewire through repetition and emotion. So whether it's the same affirmation every day, whether you're starting to shift what you're saying positively to yourself, the more you do it, the more your brain starts to rewire with neurogenesis. And yes, it is 100% possible to make new neural connections. So be positive. Tell yourself the good things. It's okay. Do it. I dare you. It's a beautiful practice. There's a lot of different card decks out there. There's a lot of things. I've also written a lot of my own things where you can write your own affirmations in your gratitude journal you do every day. Write an affirmation with your gratitude. Give it a shot. See what happens. Do it every day for a week and see what happens.
I did this affirmations journal one time, long time ago, Jana, and it was interesting because I would put things such as I am capable, and
Yeah.
then the immediate response of whatever my brain was triggering was typically the opposite, right? Or
Right.
I'm beautiful, no, I'm ugly, no, I'm not, and in
That's what
that effort
here.
to stop that self-sabotaging, you have to do it over and over and over and over and over. And it feels like it starts cleansing that part of you that enables that self-talk until out of repetition, you finally integrate the positive thought into your brain. I I always in my career in direct selling, repeating the same things to people regarding connecting, initiating conversations, etc. From the bit for the business side. I always tell people, like, how many times a day do you tell your kids to brush your teeth? And how old are they? Because to this day, I tell my 24-year-old, did you brush your teeth? You know?
Right.
Certain things just need to be repeated. What if we were able to repeat these messages over and over? I am enough. I am worthy. I am deeply loved.
Your body absorbs whatever you say in your brain just as much as what you say out loud. Your body, if you're by yourself doing this mirror work, know that if you say it out loud, your body absorbs it two ways because you said it internally, your brain thought it, and now you're auditorily absorbing it as well. So there is more power to saying it out loud than just in your mind. But if you're in situations through life where you're at work and whatever, and you need to start shifting the attitude for the day, or something happened, and instead of you being reactionary, you want to control your behavior, use an affirmation in your mind. I am calm. I am resilient. I know how to be grounded. Blah. I mean, there's a million ways that you can use this. And there's a ton of science on affirmations alone. So, I mean, obviously it's a choice, but if the brain is rewiring through repetition and emotion, this is something we have to practice on a daily basis if we want to make change. And if we want to make change, we have to intentionally make the change, or else nothing's going to happen. So people out there are like, oh, I manifested it. I'm wishing it. Okay. And what are you going to do? Well, I'm manifesting. Okay. How? What are you going to do? So there's more to it than just the energy out there.
Than
There's
just
action
thinking that.
behind the intention.
Love that. So our our next practice, it's been specially designed for women over 45 years old who have started experiencing this pouch here because it's body appreciation. When you start accumulating like out of the blue, like a specific in specific parts of your body, you're like, what happened? Wait a minute. Like three
Overnight.
years ago, I didn't this wasn't here, and
Right.
now it's right in my tummy. So let's talk about body.
Oh, body and self-love and our embodiment practices. It is hard as a woman because sometimes we are not in control of everything. We have hormones.
We do.
And they are crazy. And it happens. It happens to all of us, some of us more than others. I am a heavy hormonal person. I'm extremely emotional. I wear my feelings on my sleeve. And I used to be really, really embarrassed about it. I get really teary for other people. And I'm okay with it now because I understand a lot of it. And I understand the energy and the empathy behind it. But good gracious, it's tough sometimes. So that body reflexes can be a challenge. But when it comes to self-love, we have this self-image that is just a challenge. And as we get older, there's this beautiful society around us that shoves all these images in our face of the perfect this and the perfect that of what society thinks is perfect. But in reality, we are created as our perfect being, whether you like it or not. We are. Whatever spiritual thing you believe in, whatever God, whatever Buddha, whatever anything might be that you believe in spiritually, we are created as our perfect self, just as we are, with everything that we need. It's up to us to use it. So self-love, it's not just this mental thing, it's a physical action that we need to do. So doing the things that make us feel joyful in our body, the movements that make us feel joyful. You were talking about salsa dancing. You get to use your body in excitement and fun and make it excited and awake. So dancing is a great practice. Yoga, stretching, walking mindfully, whatever makes you feel most happy in your body, do it. There's no reason not to. I have a little story I'll get to real quick. I was a professional ballet dancer in my teens, and I had a few instances where, it got hard. My body was tired. I drove over a bridge and landed upside down in a river and was injured, and I couldn't dance. And that was the night before my first solo point experience and performance. That was a huge, devastating, again, I got mad at my body. I couldn't do what I needed, out of my control, right? So that modus of operandi, out of my control, still hard to accept. Later in life, 6 months after I got married to my current husband, who's amazing, I had an accident at work where I got minorly injured with my nerves in my right leg. And I ended up with a nerve diagnosis of chronic regional pain syndrome, which is a debilitating, horrible nerve syndrome, very rare. And I couldn't walk. And I used a cane for up to 5 years. And the doctor literally told me, be ready to get your leg amputated. And I was like, no. Very serious, just no, I'm not accepting that. And I had to work on self-love, rebuilding strength in my body. And I'm still working on it 15 years later because I gained weight. I'm not as able that I used to be. So being able-bodied to not being able-bodied took my vision completely away. All of a sudden, I couldn't stand up to cook dinner, one of my joys. I couldn't carry the laundry downstairs. I couldn't lift myself up off the commode. Like I had different struggles. So accepting lack of muscle tone, lack of movement, lack of strength, climbing stairs one after the other, like when that came back about 4 years ago, it was like this huge, look what I did, I climbed stairs. And everyone's like, what's, you know? So it's the view from others and my view of myself. So moving in those ways that makes you joyful, no matter what situation you're in, you're still capable of finding joy in your body, no matter what situation you're in. No matter what level of pain you're in, you can still find joy in your body. So again, I give a lot of gratitude to my body for the things that it can do. So I say frequently to myself, thank you, body, for carrying me through life. Because that is I'm still alive, I'm still functioning, and I love what I get to do. And things are coming back. I'm still healing. I probably always will be, and that's okay. But the acceptance is a key word. The self-love of giving your body gratitude for all that it can do, your breath, giving it the sleep, giving it the oxytocin, the dopamine, the serotonin. Those things are there. Thank you for feeding me the things that make me happy, you know? So it's a big piece right there alone to just have that gratitude for what your body can do and recognize all that it can do, not just the normal stuff, the deeper stuff.
I don't even want to move forward. I kind of like, I just want to, this is like beyond powerful, beyond powerful. I catched myself today saying, I've never had a really good health, like I've been under the knife more times that I wish I was for a varied number of reasons.
Yeah.
And I told this to a friend today, and he said, no, don't say that because your brain is listening.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. You had a heart surgery and then you have a repaired heart and it works.
Exactly.
And it beats and it loves and it suffers and it goes through all the emotions. And thank goodness you have a repaired heart.
You heal every time you've had a surgery. You've healed and you've come back stronger, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what you were saying. It's that self-talk, that it's always looking at the downside and how. And when you mentioned, Jana, that you are sensitive and empathetic, right? And as women, like we're taught to be strong and that
Stoic.
expressing our emotions is a waste of time or it's worthless because you just keep going and keep pushing. And how interesting it's to discover as we age that it's not true.
Well, it's not a weakness. It's actually one of the gifts we've been given. So how do we harness that gift? It's not hard if we allow it to surface. The more that we live, and this is number 4, I'll bring it up. Number 4 is that active self-devotion. The more that we live in allowing our divine feminine to be strong, the more we embody it to be our best self. And that's not, I'm not saying get rid of the masculine in any way, because that needs to be balanced. I can be, when it comes to business and certain things, I can be extremely masculine. When it comes to functioning, paperwork, lists, I'm on it. I plan ahead, I got it. But it's the feminine presentation that allows me to be my best self. So functioning in balance is my act of self-devotion. Those are my daily spiritual practices that help me balance both. That those treat myself, those things for me are what help me feel like I'm honoring my sacred self. I create those daily rituals. I bring in the self-honor. I do the morning, I pull an oracle card in the morning and give myself like a little honor prayer of gratitude for everything that is happening or that I want to happen for the day. I call in the law of attraction, call it in before it even happens because then it will happen, right? I'm terrified of driving in the city sometimes with having to parallel park on funny sides of the road. And I can do it on the right really well, but on the left, I get nervous. So I call in every time I drive in the city, I call in a perfect parking spot on the right.
There
Like
you go.
little things, right? And it helps. And so that law of attraction, I am calling in my acts of devotion every day. And so the challenges with that is I'm challenging you to give yourself the morning moment, is what I call it. I do a quick energy scan, pull my oracle card, morning gratitude, a morning prayer. Give yourself the morning moment. It sets you up for success all day. And then when you're really feeling down, this is a big one, and it's a personal experience, which is why I talk about it. Take a sacred bath. Water is cleansing, connecting with the water element, whether it's bath or shower, your choice. The water element alone can be so cleansing. And again, there's science behind a hot shower before bed helps you sleep too. But taking a sacred bath and allowing yourself to just release, that can be so good for your soul. And then I am a person, I love to have altars in my house. They don't have to be religious. It can just be like something special in a certain spot that you walk by and it makes you happy. It can be a candle. It can be something so simple as a picture of someone you love. But having a little self-care altar reminding you of giving yourself this love and having reminders in your home about why this is important is a huge challenge. Do it. See what happens. Every time I used to put quotes by light switches. And every time I would walk by the light switch, I would see the quote and be like, right, thanks for the reminder. And I would purposely put it in visible
Yeah,
places, not
yeah,
light switch, just a bathroom, right? Purposeful
yeah.
place. And so, yeah, self love is that daily practice. This isn't a destination, it's not a sprint. This is a long life marathon of self love that is worth the dedication.
I love it. This has been incredible, Jana. I love the daily practice at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. I do it intentionally early in the morning. I do my morning prayers and at night, um, with Eliana. In what I it's such this is a sacred moment between the two of us, right? Because we finish our daily reading and then we give thanks for what happened in the day,
Yep.
regardless of if what happens was good or bad.
Yeah.
It's appreciation of the learnings that are coming with it and trying to teach my 5-year-old to be thankful for everything that happens. And we always ask for health and protection over our family, right? And to your point, and this is not product spotlight, but like, okay, I did take today a Jersey Sunshine foaming bath, and it was amazing. So
I
I recommend it if you guys haven't tried it yet.
I do. I love the poofy bombs for this because one, I know that I'm soaking in something healthy for my body, and I'm not poisoning myself at that same time, right? So I
The scent is uplifting,
haven't right.
the foaming, it's so yeah. So those
Right.
daily rituals, definitely.
So
You
self-love,
know,
don't take it like this is a luxury, people. This is a necessity. It improves your health. It's going to strengthen your relationships. It's going to help you align with that higher energy and abundance. And it creates this ripple effect. So when you do it for yourself, know that you're helping heal the world around you. There's a ripple effect of love when you put love out. And I'm not saying that because, oh, yay, I'm hippie in love. It's because it freaking works. Try the love for yourself and see what happens.
thank you so much. Dana, we thank you so much for joining us. We are so appreciative of your time, your love for everyone around you, your devotion and dedication to servicing others, your involvement with Poofy Organics, and thank you for answering questions. Tell people how they can connect with you. I think you have different outlets on social media, but
Yes,
definitely.
I have a few, and the love-hate relationship with social media, it's a necessity for these kinds of things. So on social media, you can find my personal account, Jana Betlock, and then my business account is Life Outside the Lines. And I have a few groups. I have a plant medicine, Mindwell Plant Medicine group, because I help people with plant medicine for depression, et cetera, lots of things. And then I have a group where I post all about all of this kind of stuff and the other programs that I do. And the group is called Soulful Connections, and it's soulful, like Full
There you
connection,
go.
because that's soul full. My website, it is live, but it's not always in the best. I'm rebuilding it, so feel free to check it out, but give me some grace. I have to learn website work too. So I'm not a marketing specialist and I have to learn it. So it's www.lifeoutsidethelinesconsulting.com. And you can get in touch with me by emailing me at janabetlock@gmail.com as well. And I am on Instagram and TikTok as well. Same, Life Outside the Lines and Dragonfly Jana. Check it out. Find me. Ask me all the questions. I am in service. The calling of me is to be in service and to share and teach about all of these things and more. So I would love to connect as always.
Thank you so much. Have a blessed rest of your day, and we will be back soon and connecting with more added information and trying to add value to everyone that it's connecting with Poofy. Have a great
Awesome.
rest of your night.